Denzel Washington reveals in court how P. Diddy threatened his son to force him out of major film roles. Justice and truth collide. The courtroom buzzed with a mix of anticipation and tension as Denzel Washington took his seat. Cameras from every corner captured the moment. But inside, Denzel remained focused and composed. This was not just another high-profile trial. This was deeply personal. For the first time, Denzel was publicly accusing one of the most powerful figures in entertainment, P. Diddy, of orchestrating threats and violent attacks against his own son. A campaign designed not just to intimidate, but to force Denzel to back away from major roles that could redefine his career. Known for his commanding performances and dignified presence on screen, Denzel now found himself in a courtroom drama where the stakes were far more personal: the safety of his family. The world watched as the actor prepared to lay bare a web of intimidation, betrayal, and manipulation that had infiltrated the heart of his life. This was more than a battle for fame or success. It was a fight for justice, for the protection of a son whose life was placed in danger, and for standing up to an empire built on fear and control. The atmosphere was electric as the judge called the court to order, signaling the start of a journey that would expose the darkest corners of Hollywood's power. With every eye fixed on him, Denzel was ready to reveal the truth. A truth that could shake the foundations of the entertainment industry and change everything he thought he knew about trust, loyalty, and family. The fight for justice had just begun. The courtroom fell silent as Denzel Washington approached the witness stand, his steps steady, but heavy with the weight of years of hidden fear and unresolved pain. Cameras flashed, reporters whispered, and everyone in the room felt the magnitude of the moment. This wasn't just another celebrity trial. This was a fight for a family's safety and dignity, a story that had never been told publicly until now. Denzel's gaze swept over the packed courtroom, jurors, legal teams, spectators, before settling on the judge. His voice, calm yet firm, broke the silence. "I'm here to speak the truth," he began. "For years, my family and I have lived under a shadow of fear. Threats were made against my son's life, and those threats were no coincidence. They were part of a calculated effort to intimidate me, to pressure me into stepping away from roles that mattered, roles that could change the course of my career." He paused, swallowing the lump in his throat. What makes this even more painful is knowing who orchestrated it. Sean Combs, P. Diddy. The courtroom murmured at the name, but Denzel remained composed, his focus unwavering. "I want to take you back," Denzel continued, "to when the first threats began. It started subtly. Strange phone calls to my son, unmarked cars following him, and veiled warnings delivered through third parties. At first, I thought it might be random, but as the incidents escalated, it became clear this was no coincidence." He described a chilling sequence of events, late-night calls threatening harm if Denzel didn't back out of a major film, shadowy figures lurking near his son's home, and attempts to sabotage his son's budding career in the industry. "These were not idle threats," Denzel said. "My son's safety was genuinely at risk, and with it, my family's peace." The prosecution presented evidence supporting Denzel's testimony: surveillance footage showing suspicious vehicles near his son's residence, phone records with repeated unknown calls, and intercepted communications that hinted at a broader conspiracy. Witnesses followed, including private investigators hired by Denzel. They painted a picture of a covert operation: hired muscle, coordinated surveillance, and attempts to sabotage not only Denzel's career, but also the future of his son. One witness testified about receiving instructions to send a message and ensure Denzel knew the cost of defying certain powerful interests. Denzel spoke candidly about the emotional toll these events had taken on him and his family. "It's one thing to face challenges in your career. It's another to feel your loved ones are targets. The fear, the sleepless nights, the constant vigilance, it changes you." He recounted the difficult choice to step back from several projects, including one particularly meaningful role, out of concern for his son's safety. "It wasn't just about me," he said. "It was about protecting my family." The defense attorneys tried to undermine Denzel's credibility, suggesting the threats were exaggerated or unrelated to P. Diddy. They questioned the timing and reliability of the evidence, but the prosecution countered with a detailed timeline and corroborating testimonies. The courtroom was gripped by the unfolding drama. For many, this was the first time they had glimpsed the hidden struggles behind the polished surface of Hollywood fame. As the day wore on, Denzel's resolve never wavered. With every question and challenge, he maintained his composure and commitment to revealing the truth. Before stepping down, he delivered a final, powerful statement. No one should ever have to choose between their career and their family's safety. This trial is about more than just me. It's about standing up to abuse of power and demanding justice. The judge called for a short recess, and as Denzel exited the stand, cameras captured his steady yet solemn expression. The battle was far from over, but the first blows had been struck. Outside the courtroom, the media frenzy was in full swing. Headlines declared the beginning of a seismic legal fight. Fans and colleagues expressed support, while the entertainment world braced for the revelations yet to come. Denzel Washington had taken the first step in a journey that promised to shake the foundations of power, loyalty, and justice. The courtroom was tense as part 2 of Denzel Washington's testimony began. The focus now shifted to the specific threats and violent attempts made against his son, a young man who was on the cusp of launching his own career in the entertainment industry. The stakes were no longer just about Hollywood roles. They were about life and death. Denzel's voice was steady, but carried a deep undercurrent of pain as he recounted the harrowing experiences his family endured. "My son was targeted directly," he said. "Threatening calls, surveillance outside his home, and, one night, an attempt on his life that could have ended everything." He paused briefly, letting the weight of his words sink in. The prosecution presented detailed evidence: security camera footage from a nearby street, capturing a suspicious vehicle circling the neighborhood multiple times on the night of the attempted attack. Eyewitnesses testified to seeing unfamiliar men lurking near the family's property, behavior that was reported to local authorities. Private investigators called to the stand spoke of an orchestrated campaign, hired individuals tasked with intimidation and violence. These efforts weren't random acts of crime, but planned moves in a sinister game to control Denzel Washington's decisions by putting his family in harm's way. One investigator revealed how digital surveillance tools had been used to monitor the son's movements in real time, tracking his phone signals and online activity. "This was professional," the witness said. "This wasn't some casual threat. It was coordinated, calculated, and relentless." Denzel spoke about the impact on his son, a young man thrust into a world of fear and suspicion far too early. "He had to grow up overnight," Denzel said. "What should have been the excitement of starting his career became a daily battle against threats no one should ever face." He described moments when his son had to cancel auditions and public appearances for fear of his safety, and how these setbacks rippled through the family, creating a cloud of anxiety and helplessness. The defense attempted to minimize these claims, suggesting the incidents were unrelated or exaggerated. But the jury was presented with corroborating testimonies: neighbors who testified about suspicious activities, security experts who detailed the invasive nature of the surveillance, and family friends who spoke about the psychological toll on Denzel's son. In court, the tension was palpable as Denzel described the turning point when he realized that the threats were directly tied to his refusal to step away from a major role, a project that would have significant cultural impact and substantial commercial success. "This was about power," Denzel said firmly. "It was about sending a message, not just to me, but to anyone who dared challenge the influence of those behind this campaign. The prosecution revealed communications intercepted by investigators, coded messages between members of P. Diddy's network discussing handling the family and making an example. These recordings painted a vivid picture of a shadowy operation designed to silence and intimidate through fear. As the day unfolded, Denzel's testimony struck a chord beyond the courtroom walls. Viewers and readers began to grasp the full scale of the battle. A battle not just for roles or fame, but for the safety and freedom to live without fear. Despite the emotional weight, Denzel's composure remained unbroken. His testimony was a testament to resilience, courage, and the fierce protective love of a father willing to fight the darkest forces to safeguard his son's future. The defense continued to push back, but with mounting evidence and compelling witnesses, their position weakened. The courtroom drama intensified, setting the stage for the next phase of the trial. As the session drew to a close, the judge reminded all parties of the seriousness of the charges and the solemn duty of the jury to consider the evidence impartially. Outside the courtroom, the public buzzed with reaction. Social media erupted with support for Denzel and his family, and conversations about power, justice, and protection spread like wildfire. For Denzel Washington, Part 2 was not just testimony. It was a declaration, a stand against intimidation, a call for justice, and a promise to fight for his family's safety, no matter the cost. The courtroom held its breath as Denzel Washington resumed his testimony, shifting focus from the threats themselves to the relentless fight he and his family waged to reclaim their safety and dignity. It was a battle fought not just in legal terms but in sleepless nights, constant vigilance, and the emotional strain that gnawed at the heart of his family. "I refuse to let fear dictate our lives," Denzel declared, his voice steady, but filled with conviction. "But protecting my son and my family required every ounce of strength I had." He detailed the extensive security measures they undertook, hiring professional bodyguards, installing advanced surveillance systems, and coordinating with law enforcement. But even these efforts were met with continued intimidation tactics. "Despite all the precautions, the threats didn't stop," Denzel explained. "There were attempts to breach our security, messages sent to test our resolve. It was clear they wanted to break us." The toll on his son was profound. Forced to live under a cloud of suspicion, the young man's budding career was repeatedly derailed. Auditions were canceled, public appearances avoided, and opportunities lost, all because the shadow of danger hung heavy. "I watched my son's dreams slip through his fingers," Denzel said quietly. "All because someone believed they could control us through fear." The prosecution called several experts to the stand: security consultants, psychologists, and legal advisors, who testified to the impact of such sustained harassment. They described how intimidation campaigns like this often aim not just to threaten physical safety, but to erode mental resilience. Denzel's legal team also presented reports of police investigations and security footage documenting attempts to track and harass the family. One witness described a tense confrontation when a suspicious vehicle was intercepted near their home, confirming the persistent danger. Throughout the proceedings, the emotional weight of the testimony was palpable. Denzel's resolve became a symbol of resilience in the face of overwhelming adversity. "I'm here today," he said firmly, "not just as an actor or public figure, but as a father. I will do whatever it takes to protect my family and seek justice against those who threatened us." The defense attorneys pressed hard, questioning the extent of the threats and suggesting alternative explanations. But the jury was shown a tapestry of evidence that was difficult to dismiss: corroborating witnesses, detailed logs of security breaches, and expert opinions on the psychological damage inflicted. As the day drew to a close, the courtroom was filled with a mix of solemnity and resolve. The narrative was clear. This was a fight against abuse of power, against intimidation tactics used to silence and control. Outside the courtroom, the public discourse deepened. Support poured in for Denzel and his family, and conversations about the darker side of Hollywood influence gained momentum. For Denzel Washington, Part 3 was a testament to the strength of a family under siege and a man's unwavering commitment to justice and protection. The courtroom atmosphere grew electric as Part 4 of the trial unfolded, a moment when the hard facts, evidence, and testimonies converged into a clear picture of conspiracy and intimidation. This was the heart of the battle, where Denzel Washington's legal team presented the undeniable proof, linking P. Diddy directly to the threats against Denzel's son. The prosecution called forward key witnesses, former employees of Diddy's organization, private investigators, and cybersecurity experts, each contributing pieces to the puzzle that painted a dark picture of control, manipulation, and ruthlessness. One witness, a former insider who had grown disillusioned with Diddy's methods, detailed secret meetings where strategies to neutralize obstacles, including Denzel and his family, were discussed. It was about power and control, the witness testified. There was no room for anyone who challenged the empire. Technical experts followed, presenting detailed analysis of intercepted communications, digital footprints, and surveillance data. They explained how Diddy's network employed advanced hacking techniques to monitor Denzel's son's movements, communications, and even private meetings. The courtroom listened intently as audio recordings were played, voices unmistakably linked to Diddy's inner circle, discussing plans to intimidate and sabotage Denzel's family. Phrases like, "make them understand the cost and keep the pressure on," sent chills through the audience. Denzel sat quietly but attentively, knowing the evidence was a culmination of years of struggle. His testimony earlier had set the emotional foundation. Now, the facts were catching up. The defense team launched a vigorous counterattack, trying to discredit witnesses as disgruntled former employees or opportunists seeking to damage Diddy's reputation. They argued the digital evidence was circumstantial and that the recordings could have been doctored. But the prosecution was prepared. They brought forth metadata experts and forensic analysts who testified to the authenticity of the recordings and the veracity of the digital trails. Documents detailing financial transactions that funneled money to shadowy operatives were introduced, linking payments to individuals involved in the threats. The courtroom was captivated by the complex web of deceit and manipulation. It was clear that this was not a simple feud, but a calculated campaign designed to instill fear, silence opposition, and maintain unchecked power. Throughout the proceedings, Denzel's composure remained unwavering. While the evidence painted a brutal picture, it also highlighted his courage and determination to seek justice. The prosecution's final arguments emphasized the human cost behind the legal battle. A family torn apart, a son whose dreams were threatened, and a father who refused to be silenced. Denzel's legal team concluded with a plea for accountability. No one, they argued, should be allowed to wield power in a way that endangers lives and destroys futures. The judge acknowledged the gravity of the evidence and reminded the jury of their solemn duty. The courtroom buzzed with anticipation, knowing the verdict would carry profound consequences. Outside, media outlets exploded with coverage of the explosive revelations. Public opinion increasingly sided with Denzel, admiring his bravery and demanding justice in a system often tilted toward the powerful. For Denzel Washington, Part 4 marked a turning point, the moment when truth and justice seemed within reach after a long and painful fight. The courtroom fell into a heavy silence as the jury foreperson stood to deliver the verdict. Denzel Washington's heart pounded, each beat echoing the years of struggle, fear, and relentless fight that had led him here. The judge's gaze swept across the room, the tension palpable. We, the jury, find the defendant, Sean Combs, guilty of orchestrating threats and intimidation against the plaintiff's family, including attempts to endanger his son's safety. the foreperson declared. Relief and vindication flooded Denzel. Justice had finally been served, not only for him and his son, but for all who suffer under abuse of power and manipulation. The empire P. Diddy had built, once seemingly untouchable, was shaken to its core. As Combs was led away in handcuffs, camera flashes exploded. The media frenzy was instantaneous, headlines screaming scandal and betrayal. Denzel stepped outside the courthouse, surrounded by supporters and reporters. His voice was steady, but filled with emotion. "This victory isn't mine alone," he said. "It's for every family threatened and silenced by those who believe they're above the law. Today, we stand for truth, safety, and justice." Though the battle was won, Denzel knew the scars would remain. But with justice on his side, he looked forward to rebuilding, on his own terms. The fight had been brutal, but the victory was sweeter than he had ever imagined. For Denzel Washington, this was not the end but a new beginning.